Hey everybody, Card Dreamer here, coming at you on behalf of D Class and all things D Class related. And today I have a very special discussion. We are going to be discussing Nintendo and what, if anything, they will need to do to stay relevant come the next generation of consoles, which is on the horizon. And I have two very special guests with me today. I'm here with Danny of Switch Underground and Erica of the Switch Corps on Twitch, or not Twitch, Twitter. Sorry. She'll get the Twitch one day.
I don't know about that.
But I mentioned it when I was discussing in the direct messages as with the new generation of consoles coming out, the Xbox Series X and
Wait, direct
5.
messages? Who says that? It's DMs, dude.
People,
My God.
look, I'm showing my age.
Here we are recording on a Victrola.
If I could do cassettes and hit the play and record button, I'd be happy.
I'm talking into a can right now. It's weird. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
This is the last time I'm inviting Danny to a discussion.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. This is great. So, but with the new generations coming out and everything that they're going to be capable, like they're closer to PCs than any console's been before. And of course, 3 months after the release, PCs will blow them out of the water again. But Nintendo, do you feel Nintendo has to make some drastic changes or has to do something to stay relevant? Because there's a couple of issues I see coming with the new gen, specifically going to be new games. And that is Switch had a hard time getting newer games this generation as it was. Look how long it took for things like XCOM 2 to come out. And then you're going to have games that are now going to be coming out. There's no way Switch will be able to run, period. It's not even a matter of just downgrading graphics, but AI as well and programming. So do you feel Nintendo's got to do something? Do you feel that they should risk it and just stay with the Switch and keep going the way they're going? Or just what are your guys' opinion on where the direction Switch has to go, if at all?
Well,
or
first I want to hear what you said you had thought about some problems they would have.
Well, yeah, part of it would be newer games as far as new third-party games. That's let me clarify that, because obviously Nintendo can do whatever they want with their own system. So you're going to have, when you get to the newer games from third parties, whatever they may be, they're going to be at such a state that they're not going to run on the current Nintendo Switch. No. Period. And not to mention, and that's just as far as running goes. Then you've got the whole idea of the whole space of the game. I mean, current gen games are huge as it is, depending on which one you're looking at. And I mean, you I think when looked on your Switch as far as Borderlands and all that goes, is roughly 30 gigs each, 30 or 40 gigs for the trilogy. I mean,
it was like they're like 20, 30.
20, which is that's a lot of space for Switch. That's a lot. They take up more than that on Xbox or PlayStation 4.
It's enough space that I actually bought a secondary memory card to just house big ass downloads like Resident Evil or Mortal Kombat or Borderlands and BioShock and stuff like that. If I want to play those games, I have to actually switch my memory card out.
Yeah.
And see, and that to me was an issue from day one with Switch for me, but that's a different topic. We've come along. We've come along a decent way from that, where it's not the issue or as big of an issue that people thought it was going to be, including myself. It's not as big of an issue. Nintendo really didn't learn how to nail down compression for their games. Mm-hmm. Also, they went a slightly different route, I think, than other current gens, as far as I think they're focused more on the indie titles, which are, a lot of them are retro, which take up less space to begin with. Yes, they have a lot of newer games, which are fairly big, but then you got the memory card issue. But that's going to be a bigger issue with the next gen coming. Do you see those being able to be played down enough to run on the Switch? Do you see them having to do a new system, so address the space issue?
Do you remember Stanny, or should I?
You can go. It's fine. I'm still thinking.
I think there's a a few bullet points I like to think of, at least in this aspect, is Nintendo has never followed the norm when we think of consoles and what they plan for the future. I mean, the Switch, I feel like, came out of nowhere, especially coming off of, it's that hybrid. It's the next step from the Wii U. So they also, their time frame is different. They overlap with cross gens. So they've never bought into that idea of console wars. They've always been, beating their drum to their own tune over there, So I don't think they're going to focus, at least as a company, as much on competing with the other two as we think they are. Especially they've already established a relationship with Xbox, Microsoft. So I think a lot of stuff Microsoft might be producing next gen we would eventually see on the Switch, just by their relationship. And you never know, they could also eventually develop that relationship with Sony. And I also think that Nintendo's also always said they want this to be a family of consoles, not just thinking like you think of the Wii, the Wii U. Like you just have and they've already shown that by moving into the Switch Lite. Remove the Joy-Cons, change the way you interact with it. So eventually, I think we'll see a Switch Pro, and then you never know, they could move into something that becomes more of a home console that they think still as part of their Switch family. That instead of being on the go, which they're dominating the handheld right now, they have been for the last 2 years. It could just be a home console, and that could be more powerful. I don't think they're going to push or stretch their limits to try and fight with Sony or Microsoft for the tech that allows them to do the same type of graphics or anything like that. But I think we're going to see something from them down the road that allows them to run something a little more powerful. I don't imagine it would be in the handheld family. I would imagine it'd be some kind of home console that fits into their family of consoles. If I was taking a drastic guess of the future of Nintendo for the next few years.
So, okay, then let me ask you this. And actually, I think this would also be a good way to tie in what you wanted to say about game carts in the last discussion, because it all fits into to the space aspect as well, how they weren't all in the carts. But you're saying, so you brought up the family of consoles, and that's two things right there.
Yeah.
Do you think the Switch kind of not only, but a good part of the reason why the Switch did become popular is because it took over their handheld line? They got rid of the DS to do it, basically.
Yeah.
And then, can you still have a family of console? If they make a Pro that's console only, then I don't see it's no longer going to stay a family, because if they make something geared for the Pro, that because the Pro is more powerful, then the other two aren't going to be able to run it. At least with the Lite and the basic Switch, they still play the same games. It's just a matter of one's more dedicated to on the go, one's a little more versatile.
What if the Pro was actually just a big ass dock, and some games would need to only be able to be played docked? You would still, and you could use your OG Switch to do it. What if the Pro was just a dock? It would still be a family of consoles technically, except it would be on the developers to determine whether or not you could play it on the go or not.
Yeah.
I could theoretically see something like this if the dock was also basically not only a docking station that allows you to play it on your TV, but basically one big ass hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
Not just a hard drive, but like computing power as well.
Well, yeah, the whole work. Yeah, basically everything but the actual console player itself.
Yeah. For me, I guess to remain in a family of consoles, you still have to be able to share your gameplay from that home dock or home console, whatever we want to call it, to your handheld.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to. Now, a lot of them it might lock it into like this is required to play docked, but like if my Switch on the go, I can still share with my account to be able to pick up what other indie game I'm playing on my home dock or console, and then still continue that play on the go. Then for me, it's still part of the same family of consoles. if I can share that, whether it's through the dock like Danny's seen, or somehow your account would adjust that. So yeah, I'm not thinking like a console completely separate. I'm thinking of something that needs to interact with your Switch Lite, or because I'm thinking more like Switch Home, Switch Pro. I think we'll eventually get a more powerful standard regular Switch as well at some point, but they still need to interact for me to consider them a family, quote unquote. Because you have the DS and the Wii, completely different mediums for playing. They weren't to be able to do that, and I think to remain in the quote unquote Switch family, they would need to be able to do that going forward if that's what they want to consider it. So.
I was waiting for Danny to have a rebuttal. Honestly,
Oh no, I don't. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that would be my requirement to consider it part of the same family. Is I need to be able to pick up what I'm doing. Now, some of them, as Danny said, might be locked into dock, so I wouldn't expect to take that on the go. But the fact that everything else account-wise could interact across that spectrum would be what I would want to see in a family. Can't see my fingers, but I'm making quotes. Family.
We've already got kind of reverse of that situation with some games, because there are some games that can only play handheld.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I like that stupid Pokemon Cafe game that's free. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna bite the bullet and I'll give this a fair shot. It's free. Why the heck not? And then I booted up like, no, you have to play this handheld. I was like, well, you just lost me there. I'm not giving up my Pro controller.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I see it could have stayed a family if they had made the Switch handhold still dockable for purposes.
Yeah.
I understand that may have been. I don't know. It's one of those weird things. Like I almost felt like the Switch Lite wasn't needed because you have one that's portable and it's dockable.
Yeah.
And the Lite, I know a lot of people jumped on it and they like it. I'm not knocking that, but I feel like for me, money wise, granted it was a little bit. It was what $100 cheaper than a base.
Yeah, it's $199 for the it's a good price. Let
Plus,
alone
it is a major pain in the butt to run two Switches from one Nintendo account. Yeah. So I have two Switches, right? My OG Switch my kids use, and then I bought the revision with the battery life and stuff that's better. So I use that one.
Yeah.
But just making it so that I could use both Switches and like sync save files and all kinds of crap like that, because I didn't want to have to repurchase every single game I've ever bought.
Oh, yeah.
Because my library is very vast. So I wanted to make sure those were all available in the living room. And I mean, there's like a ton of tricks I have to go through, right? Like if I want to record something while my son is playing a game through a game that I purchased on the eShop, I have to forget my wireless network so it doesn't check, so that I can play it here locally. And it's just little tiny things like that, and there's a lot of them to make it happen. So it's a lot to set up. So having two Switches is just not worth it.
I don't think anyone would argue that Nintendo's online service or account service is streamlined in any way or manner, really.
No.
And that's
not
what they
easy.
Would need to fix if they want to move into, hypothetically, what we are saying. Something where, that's definitely something that needs to be.
I mean, if there was one huge bullet point in Nintendo's what they need to change, it is that, right? Yeah. They just need all of their online stuff to be way better than it is now.
Yep.
I will 100% agree, and that's actually what puts me off buying a lot of the multiplayer games, online multiplayer games for Switch, because I know a lot of people. Again, you two are an example. I got Dace, and there's always Autumn, and I have family and whatever. They all have Switches, and there's games that I know. Blood Mary is actually another one. She wants to play multiplayer Switch titles, but I won't do it because I'm like, I can sit on my Xbox and PlayStation 5, put a headset on, and I'm basically done. Yeah. And that's it. And if I want to sit there and have a decent communication over the Switch playing online, I got to get your friends over. That in and of itself is not a big deal because you need the person's screen name on PlayStation or Xbox. But then I need to either set up an app on my phone to sit there and use a headset with, or I've got to use Discord, or I got to use a third party of something, or 5 million things for the first party app, which makes no sense, just to try to have a normal game experience with another person.
So, and that's playing with. I mean, that's playing with someone else. I mean, I'm even just talking about interacting with your own account, let alone other people. You know.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, so that's something, if they want to, like I said, hypothetically move into what we are saying, needs to be revamped and reworked. You know, if you can't argue for someone buying your home console that might be able to run something more powerful if they then can't take the majority of the games with them anymore. You know, if because you can't get that to sync up or link, it's just that would defeat the purpose in my mind. So.
I totally agree. PlayStation, Xbox uses the cloud to be able to transfer game saves or whatever. It's not a huge issue. Even the last gen 360, and I don't know about PlayStation 3 because I never had to do it on the PlayStation 3, even though I have one. But 360 allowed you to copy the game saves. Now, not only could you put them on the cloud, but you can copy them to a thumb drive or a memory card, depending on what model you have. So it was like there's always ways to back it up and easily go to another one, no big deal.
Well, there's been some hero developers out there, dude, that have just been like, you know what, Nintendo, you do your thing. We really want people to play our game, though, so we'll handle that. Fortnite, Paladins, The Witcher 3 is absolutely the best example of how to do it. Because The Witcher 3 will allow you to transfer your save games from PC to your Switch, or from your Switch to your PC, and you can just keep going back and forth. I've done it. I know it works. It's freaking great.
That is awesome.
Know that. I did not know you could.
And that circumvents Nintendo's stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you got to tell your Switch, like, hey, here's my Steam stuff, so that it can like sync up, right? But it's a really painless experience to just go back and forth. It's just like it's 2 menu buttons and it downloads the new save and boom, you're going.
Yeah. And doesn't Fortnite go the extra mile, and you can actually transfer between not just the PC, but you can actually do your Xbox and PlayStation accounts version 2? No matter what it is, it's a cross board as far as transferring your stuff.
Yes and no. Fortnite, your account, and I only know this because I grind out my Epic account that my son plays on the Switch on the PC to unlock the Battle Pass stuff to avoid tears and breakdowns, because we need those characters apparently. So the only thing that does not transfer between the different platforms that you play on is the V-Bucks that you earn on that console or platform that you're playing on. So if I buy V-Bucks on the PC, they will not be reflected when he's playing on the Switch. But any unlocks that I purchase or earn are reflected in both places. They both log in with the same Epic account, but you do not share V-Bucks for each device. They have their own little V-Buck pools.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense, because the V-Bucks kind of like are the bread and butter for their money making. So it's keep it on.
Yeah, and I think it's also they kind of change. Like, I seem to level up a lot faster when I'm playing on the Switch versus the PC, because I'm playing with different pools of players, and the experience rolls a little better, and it's easier to do things in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just to prevent people from kind of gaming it, you know.
So we're looking at basically, I think so far what we're saying is the consensus is Nintendo. There isn't any one thing Nintendo has to do. There's a lot Nintendo has to do if they're going to stay relevant, so to speak.
I think we'll also agree that Nintendo doesn't care.
Yeah, that's like,
which has both been good and bad.
Honestly, true. About it at all, and you also have to think the way both big home consoles. You got Sony, Microsoft. What are they producing? Or I suppose we may not know, but there's been no hint of any handheld. Like, Nintendo is going to rule the handheld part of the market for the foreseeable future. So, you know, I don't think they're worried about it. Honestly, I don't think they've ever been worried about it. But
keep in mind, the handheld aspect is what's holding the Switch, or is kind of what, I don't want to say held it back, but has what limited new generation game wise that could come to it.
Yeah, which is why I think they'll expand, at least by my hypothesis, expand their family into something that is able to do that. But I don't know. Like I said, Nintendo's always done their own thing, so I think there's stuff they need to do if they want to be able to play other games. But at least for me as a gamer, I'm never going to think of Nintendo as irrelevant just purely based on the IPs they own. Purely that. Like, they will never be irrelevant.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to want to play Mario. I'm always going to want to play Zelda. Just purely based on what they own, they're never going to be irrelevant.
You heard Nintendo, like, there was like rumors and stuff like probably a year ago. It's like, oh, we're gonna really start to move into the mobile phone game market, right? And then Animal Crossing comes out, and all of a sudden, there's no Switches to buy anywhere.
Yeah.
Just because of Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Well,
so do you spend millions and millions and millions of dollars developing new hardware, or do you spend a fraction of that cost and make Animal Crossing?
Yeah.
See, and that, I mean, it really depends on everything you want to do, because that's also, be fair, Animal Crossing is not exactly the most graphical intense game there is. They didn't have to invest a whole lot. I don't think graphically Animal Crossing has really changed since the GameCube.
Well, there's two angles then, right? There's the, can this hardware handle the graphic fidelity of the next generation, and there is, what's the best business decision?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And actually, I think that's a very good point, because you're right. Animal Crossing, huge seller. But Animal Crossing alone is not going to keep them in business, and it hasn't.
No,
but it kind of did, because it sold all of the Switches. So now you have all of these people with Switches. They're gonna be bored as hell when the swimming scuba stuff is over.
Let's keep in mind. Also, we have a pandemic that kept people locked indoors.
True.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, I don't think Nintendo has always. They haven't ever felt the need to push their graphic style to tell the story or game they want. So am I going to do I feel the need to demand a Zelda that looks lifelike? Absolutely not. That in no part of me does that like need to be a step they need to take their IPs, like any of their games direction wise. So like I said, I don't think.
Oh man, but Erica, it would be so good. Could you imagine like Monster Hunter, but it was like Pokemon?
Oh yeah, no, I've seen some graphic people, artists that have shared online of like a more really, and it's not even what I call realistic, because it's not like I'm looking at Death Stranding out here, but it's still just a darker and a more mature version of their games, which looks so fascinating to me. And I would love if they moved that direction, purely because our generation who grew up in Nintendo is older at this point. It's
right.
not, it's not the people that have played them for decades are in their 30s. They're in their 40s. Like, it's not. So I would love to see a more mature version of their games, but I don't think, because purely based on IPs they own and the way they like to tell games, I don't think they have to move into fighting against the other companies in the next gen to still remain relevant, is what I was saying. So.
No, I totally agree. And actually, touching on what Danny just said, yes, I would love a Pokemon game that just looks like the style they used in Detective Pikachu movie.
Yeah, like a more, and that's, there's, and I'll have to find some of the ones I've shared on Twitter of just like more, and I still wouldn't call them realistic or like dark, but just a more mature look. And I think Nintendo as a company needs to look at their audience and realize that it's not all the kids that played them have now grown up, and they have kids of their own, but like, we want to see some maturity in our games as well sometimes.
I don't know, dude. I might be staring at the future right now in my very hands.
Oh, no.
Bee Simulator was on sale at the GameStop.
I just ordered that 2 hours ago, Daddy.
And
yeah,
I mean, this could be it. There's an energy just holding this box that I'm feeling.
Hey, that's on all consoles. That's not just, that's the future. Well, I just ordered that 2 hours ago from Al.
Oh yeah, they got me with helmet too. I posted it.
Yeah, I ordered a helmet a few months back when it was like the deal of the day for like $8. So
Yeah. It was
think,
it was mega cheap, both
Yeah.
of them today. So I was like, fine.
Also, outside of just graphics, for me, before I bought the Switch, while I played a few indie games, they were usually just big name indies that you hear about. Celeste, I mean not Celeste, Shovel Knight and Undertale.
hmm
The Switch for me has opened up to so much indies and indie developers that going forward, just the fact that because they're usually less heavy on graphic style, even going forward into next gen, indies I purchase digitally or physically will still be on my Switch.
It just works so well there.
I will say that. Like, So.
No, I don't. I don't disagree. I think
Yeah.
Switch, and I would argue Switch is number one, but PlayStation's pretty close because they're pretty open and easy to do with their with the indie market as well. Because I mean, you look at limited run games, super rare game, they're always doing a Switch or PlayStation versions. Xbox has just totally dropped the ball on that, and
the Xbox made it difficult for they don't offer low count limited prints to publishers. So, and that might change going forward, but I know multiple people from Limited Run have said it's purely on Xbox is the reason why they do not print their small batches on their console, because they don't offer small print run options.
It's more than that, though, as an issue.
I'm sure it is, but like the main reason is...
No, I don't mean just physicals. Like, look at the Messenger. That's been out for how long on Switch?
A while. Like a year.
It just hit
2 years.
Xbox.
Been out for, yeah.
Digitally, it just hit Xbox. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But
going forward, I will continue to purchase my indie games on my Switch. That's just, I don't even moving into next gen. I don't foresee that changing in my mind. So.
I don't either, unless it's like one of those like crazy like what's a game that Outer Wilds, right? So that's an indie game for all intents and purposes. And but it is pretty graphically intense, and that is one that I would definitely purchase, that I would have purchased on a console that wasn't the Switch, because that is an experience that I think should be explored to the fullest that it can be.
I just downloaded it on my Xbox because it was on Game Pass.
Oh,
so,
cool.
I played like an hour of it, and I want to get back into it once I kind of get settled after The Last of Us. So
nice.
Yeah, and it really depends on what kind of experience you're looking for. Like, I know Hellblade is on Switch, but I'm going to play it on my Xbox because I feel like I want that more graphic, heavy sound, audio clarity for that experience. So
let me ask this, because Danny brought up a good point. What's more, it's a business decision.
Yeah.
Ultimately. So then, do you feel it's economical for Nintendo to continue down the road they are as far as trying to make their console an all-in-one, both home and handheld, or possibly going back to the split market, handheld and a console? Because, I mean, business-wise, let's look at the history Nintendo has. When it came to handheld, nobody touched them. Sega tried, they failed.
Mm-hmm.
Sony tried, and they hung in there for a while. But they didn't reach Nintendo's level, and eventually PlayStation has stopped.
They didn't give enough support to the Vita in the first place. It was an afterthought, it felt like. So.
Is the Vita the one that required the special memory card?
Yes, I believe so. I did not.
Was that the one, or was that the PSP? Maybe they both
PSP.
did.
I have a PSP, and I do not recall buying. Well, and I could be wrong because, like I said, I didn't jump into either one of those Sony's handheld markets as much.
But that proves Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo came out with like 6 different versions of the original Game Boy, and people jumped on them all. They had the Micro, the Mini, the Pocket, whatever.
Yeah.
People and those were all real. I'm not even making those up. Like, I don't get.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I have my Game Boy Color here. So yeah.
Color, advanced, just all of them, dude.
Okay, so obviously it's like they can just rebox the same thing and people will buy it because it's Nintendo. Let's be honest, because I did it too. I can't. I'm not gonna knock on anybody who did it. But they've proven that they can. For a video game company, they know how to hit a collector market. For whatever reason, they know how to hit that collector's market, not just the players. So to me, it seems like a business point of view would make sense splitting that again. Go back to your handheld market and do a console right with appropriate. Doesn't have to be graphically the same as technological is the same as what the current gen are going to do or the next gen's going to do. Oh, obviously you want to keep your costs down. You want to be the family that console the family plays. I get that to an extent. I do get that. But if you had a console that was, if not quite at the same standards, at least on par, there's absolutely no reason they can't have their cake and eat it too. There's no reason they can't do their first-person titles exactly the way they want to do them, and then they would have a console system that, if they would get their online crap together, there's no reason they can't have the DLC market, that they can't have the memory space capacities, that they can't have the Call of Duties or Battlefield. They can have everything. Because honestly, let's be real. If my Nintendo could handle Monster Hunter World and all those the current gen games, as well as give me the Pokemon Mario Zelda experience and what, that would have been my still. I was a Nintendo fanboy up to the Wii that just couldn't give me what the other systems could. I would go back to being a Nintendo fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the split that you're talking about would probably be pretty bad, because right now handheld players and Nintendo console players are united, right? And if I am a person who's making a game and then I have to choose which side I want to put it towards, and if I make a game that'll run on both, then I have to split my marketing costs up too. And not only will my game, may or may not get mentioned on either side. I mean, right now it's pretty simple. You want to play it in handheld or play it on your TV? It's all in one spot. And there's no like, I'm using the console and I'm using the handheld version. Everybody's just all in one nice basket. And I think they will continue to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be really painful for game developers who are trying to make it if they split it apart. And the community gets split up too, which sucks. Right now everybody's kind of together and happy. Well, I mean, as happy as gamers can be, they're all kind of bitter about something.
Sorry, Mo. Yeah. I would agree with that. I think moving away to splitting, because I'm assuming if you're thinking like a home console that's completely separate from their handheld, you're thinking like different media that's able to hold and run different type of graphic. For me, if it does not interact with your handheld like it does now, whether that's just in the ability to share a game going forward if they do a home console, then I wouldn't think it was a wise business decision. I think
that could be the difference if it had like a cartridge port on it or something.
Yeah, like anything that allowed you to just somehow interact with games you've already purchased, games that you're already playing.
Doesn't PlayStation do that? With between the Vita, like the PS share, PlayStation Share, or whatever it is, don't they actually allow you to play your?
Yeah, you can, and you can even play your remote play too, where you're playing the game directly from your PS4, but you're playing on your Vita. Yeah, so I don't know why Nintendo wouldn't be able to do that, because the reason it didn't work for PlayStation is because they didn't develop the Vita or support its marketing, its library in any way. So it unfortunately died a lot sooner than it probably should have.
You also still have to be at your house. You can't take it with
you. For the remote play part of it, yes.
Right.
And then they use two different types of media. So what I'm saying is, if you could link those up where they're using the same type of media, I don't have to rebuy my entire gaming library, and it can interact with what I already have, then I don't know why they wouldn't be able to do a home console that is meant to stay at home and not travel with you. As long as you're able to link it up with that, then I think that'd be fine going forward. Separating separating them into different medias, no interaction is, I think, would be a bad decision. So, that.
Okay.
Just on the off chance that you could play some of the higher graphic games going forward. And a lot of the games that you think of, like when you think of Sony, when you're like, man, I wish we could play those games, a lot of them aren't third-party games. They're exclusives you're not going to see on Nintendo anyways. We're not, you don't see Spider-Man or God of War over on Xbox. You're not going to see it, just because now the whatever Nintendo home console it is you have can run that doesn't mean you're going to get those games. You're still going to need to play them on PlayStation because they're exclusives. So,
and you'd ripple out into tons of other communities. You'd split the collector's market. You would split limited run releases. You would split everybody.
I say chaos and anarchy. It
would be chaos. Hell, even review sites.
Oh, right? Yeah, if they came out and announced we're doing a home console, we're moving back to discs so that we can, people can put bigger games on stuff. I don't know what I'd do. I'd be like, great. I'm not gonna rebuy anything I'm already playing, that I already have on the Switch, which means if I want to play on my home console, it'd have to be a brand new playthrough. It's it's nothing that would interact with what I've already done in their current gen. So
well, but is it really any different than what we've already had? So if you had two consoles that had two different sets of games, there's almost always with Nintendo been a way to play your portables on the console. Super Nintendo had the Game Boy, the Super Game Boy cart that allowed you to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color. The GameCube had something you can put on the bottom that lets you play Game Boy Advance games. So there's always.
As a person who skipped the Wii U, you weren't able to play your 3DS library on there, were you? I honestly don't know.
No, the 3DS one is the 3DS right now. As far as I know, is the only.
And I think that's why they struggled last generation. And I think condensing them down in the Wii is why the Wii has become the console it is now, and why they're getting some of their third-party support back and everything like that. Because, as Danny said, the developers, the publishers, anyone in marketing doesn't have to split their time or make a decision on which to support, handheld or home console. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Plus, if Nintendo put out a home console right now, it would have to be competitive. I don't think the Switch is near its end of life cycle, and I don't think I would personally buy it, right? Because I'm planning on buying a PS5. So if Nintendo's doesn't compete with that, I'm not invested enough in the Nintendo first party titles to do it.
They think the Switch. Nintendo has said that they think the Switch is right around the halfway mark of what they think of it as its lifespan. So yeah, why would I buy a home console to play higher games if it chances of it being able to do what I'm going to see my PS5 or my Xbox Series X do are slim. So why, if it's not going to interact with my Switch, why would I buy that console? I'm not going to buy their home console if it's below the other two, if it's not able to play my handheld library.
Because, Erica, you could stand in your room with your VR headset on and your fake Pokeball, and you could throw it and break stuff, but you caught a Charizard.
That Labo VR wasn't working for you? That wasn't working for you? That cardboard tunnel didn't get you in the mindset of VR?
Just didn't get my engine revved.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So
over and ready to go. Yeah, it's just.
So then let's look at the flip side of this. Then I know the discussion was do we feel Nintendo has to make any changes, and if so, what? But maybe they. So what if they don't? What do you feel like you see them doing then, as far as staying relevant? Do you see them doubling down on the indie game support, doubling down on their first party titles? Because we already know they're doing the remasters of their Mario library, at least the 3D.
Yeah, I think that was probably supposed to be an E3 announcement, and then with the pandemic and everything, they'll just start to trickle out information right before release dates, just like how we got the Paper Mario announcement out of nowhere, less than 2 months before the release date. So.
And honestly, I don't think Nintendo has to do anything except that. Because if I'm a developer and I'm like, okay, how hard is it to make games? Okay, I can make indie games that aren't as, graphically intensive because it's cheaper, and there's millions and millions of Switches out there. What am I going to choose to develop for?
That is a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, I feel what we're saying is basically the indie then the indie market is really what is going to keep the Switch thriving at least halfway through the next gen.
I would say so. And I think they're already kind of thriving from it, so they just don't have to change squat.
I think having now snagged the indie market is just the cherry on top, because as I've said, Nintendo's first party IPs would carry them through any stumble they have. Like,
sure.
You're going to buy Zelda. You're going to buy Mario. So even if they did nothing to adjust the Switch or the Switch family for the next 4 years, the second half of the generation, you're still going to.
Who's getting arrested right now?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Erica, what did you do?
My window's open. So.
Sorry.
So yeah, their first party IPs will carry them through. I think picking up the indies is just the cherry on top, and I really do think we're gonna see some kind of something new from them in the next 4 years. I think we'll see probably a more capable Switch Pro. I don't know if we'll see this home console dock hybrid we're talking about. It'd be amazing if they did. I love if I got to play some more powerful stuff, that even if they had to remain docked, despite me being usually a handheld player, that'd be great. But as I said, if it doesn't interact with my Switch, I don't know if it would be on the top of my list to purchase. I would probably purchase either my Xbox Series X or my PS5 before that, if it wasn't going to offer me the ability to play my current Switch library or the same tech that's going to play those games that my PS5 and Series X are going to anyways. So
yeah, there's no way I just put the Switch down and I'm like, I'm not touching you no more.
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
For me, actually, like, I bought the DS and then I bought the 3DS and then I bought the 3DS XL and then I bought the new 3DS XL, right? I was totally invested in like the DS line.
Yeah.
And when the Switch came along and I had a new like portable, I haven't touched it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say to that? Yeah. Like,
but I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, and I think
I'm still buying games actively for this thing.
Yeah, and I don't know, probably because of just the people I interact with more online. But you would be amazed how many people that I would consider fairly good friends at this point online only game on the Switch, and they do not have a PlayStation or an Xbox. So like going forward, they're all in on that. So anything coming to the Switch, they're going to be happy to get, and they're not worried about other consoles because they don't have them. So yeah, I'd say if I had to look at like my Switch friends list on at least Twitter, I would say a good 50% of them don't own another console, which for me seems odd, but for so many people that's the console that got them back into gaming, and that's what they're enjoying playing. They like playing on the go, handheld, especially, so it surprises me how many are like that. I think it would surprise if we looked at numbers how many are like that.
And I think about that sometimes. I'm like, because there's so many people, we all have the same story. It was like, got away from gaming forever, got older, something about the Switch came along, and now everybody's all back in. There's just so many, and it's another discussion, I guess, but I just gotta wonder if it's because of the age group that we're in and the interests and personalities that we've gravitated towards that just all kind of have that story, or if it's like way more widespread than that.
I completely skipped, I would almost say I completely skipped the last gen. I was at school, I didn't have time, I didn't have the money, so I had a PS4, but I wasn't as active on it as I am probably now. But then I got a Switch, and it just sucked me right back into the gaming world more so than before. And it's actually led to me playing both my PS4 more than I was before the Switch. And it's led me to buying an Xbox. I literally just bought my first Xbox 3 months ago. I would have done that 3 years ago. I just, because there was certain games on there that I wanted to play. And I think, I can trace my, not new love, but refound love of gaming back to picking up the Switch and getting sucked back into gaming culture.
It's just the most bizarre phenomenon that so many people are experiencing.
The same discussion. Yes, so many people are like that. It's crazy. So, yeah.
Well, I think those are all valid points, and I think that's a perfect note to actually end this discussion on, because I think we covered a lot of good ground on that, and I again appreciate you both being here to do that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This was a good time.
Yeah.
It was. I enjoyed the laughs and Erica being arrested, and
I usually dread talking to
Man,
Dan
that was
about
weird.
pretty much anything. So
it's true. That wasn't even a drive-by. That's like they circled your house for a good 3 minutes. Like,
All right. I'll come clean. It was me. I called. I saw something was probably gonna happen. I just said, just wait about 90 minutes and then just go in. She will be doing something illegal.
Hanging out in my parking lot, like, hey, we're just waiting for the go ahead from Danny. Yeah, I'm sure that's.
Yeah.